We are in the next part of our meeting today, and we have the honor to have with us today Hillel. Hillel Fuld, considered to be one of the top marketers in Israel, and also known as the man transforming startup nation to scale-up nation by Forbes. He's a tech journalist, startup marketer, and technology expert. Do you know that Hillel was recently named one of the 7 most influential tech bloggers on the internet and among the top 100 most influential social media personalities across the globe, with hundreds of millions of readers? Another thing that you may want to know about Hillel, that he works with technology companies and accompanies them from idea to revenue. He also works with many leading tech brands as an influencer like Google, Oracle, Huawei, and many more. It is just natural to invite you, Hillel, to our prestigious Startup MBA program in the Technion. In Sumba, we have talented students who are interested in promoting a technological venture while studying toward MBA degree. They develop their own ventures. So we are all looking forward to listen to you.
Wow, what an introduction. Your check is in the mail. Okay, before I start, if I'm speaking too fast, just like raise your hand or go like this, because I've had 2 coffees and a Red Bull, so I'm a little bit wired. But really, if I'm speaking too fast, let me know. Okay, so just by a show of hands, if you could just raise your hand if you have a venture, if you have a startup that's actually beyond an idea, not just an idea, a startup. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. So as Sarah mentioned, I meet a lot of entrepreneurs here in Israel and in Silicon Valley. And, there's no rules. There's no rules to startups. Anybody that tells you if you do this, you're going to be the next Google is lying to you. Fire them. There are things, however, that if you don't do them, then the chances of you succeeding are even lower, which means, generally speaking, startups, are very risky and maybe 95% of them fail. But if you don't follow certain rules and certain guidelines, then your 95% chance of failure is about 99% chance of failure. I like to call these 3 rules that I've kind of picked up over the years from meeting so many entrepreneurs, and I'm going to share them with you. But before I do that, a really, really important point. I hear every single day, people come to me and say, I have an idea that's going to be the next Facebook. I have an idea that's going to be the next Google. And I say to them, listen, it's great that you have a nice idea, but an idea is about 1% of what you need to build a successful venture. If you guys think about all of the successful companies in technology, all of them, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google, any of them, none of them had an idea. What was Twitter's idea? 140 characters? What was Facebook's idea? There was MySpace before Facebook. It wasn't an idea. Not only is an idea not relevant or not important, but also technology is not important or relevant. Think about it again. Did Facebook have any proprietary technology? Now they do, because they're scaling at unprecedented rates. But when they started, there was no technology there. Did Twitter have a technology? Did Uber have a technology? Nobody had technology. Intel and IBM have technology. But startups from our generation, companies from our generation, technology does not play a significant role. So 2 of the things that I hear entrepreneurs talk about so often are ideas and technology, both of which are pretty irrelevant. And that's a really, really important point. Before I talk about the rules, one more important thing. Something that I find entrepreneurs, specifically in Israel, but not only in Israel, tend to ignore all the time is market research, competitive analysis. So I say to entrepreneurs every day, who are your competitors? And what do they say? We have no competitors. Well, of course you have competitors, because there's no way that no one else is trying to solve the problem that you're trying to solve. In fact, if no one else is trying to solve the problem that you're trying to solve, then no one needs your solution and you should just close it up because there's no demand and bikush, right? If other people are trying to solve your problem, that's a good thing. But here's the problem. The problem is that a lot of entrepreneurs define competition incorrectly. How do they define a competitor? They say, no one else is doing the same thing that I'm doing. And that is not what a competitor is. Let me give you an example. Let's say I have a startup, and let's call it Startup A. Startup A. It doesn't even matter what the product is. And let's say I come to Ynet, and I say to Ynet, listen, use my product, product A, and your readers will stay on the page longer. And if your readers stay on the page longer, you'll make more money. My product is product A. The next day comes along another company and says to Ynet, listen, I have a product. It's called product B. And if you use my product, your readers will stay on the page longer. Now, I have product A. He has product B. We're not even similar. There's no competition in terms of the product, but we're direct competitors. Why? Because we're competing on market share. We're competing on attention. We're competing for Ynet. Both of us are trying to get Ynet as a customer, and Ynet is not going to use both of us. So we are direct competitors, even though we have completely different products. And this is maybe the most important thing I'm going to say today. If you have an idea for a startup, that's wonderful. Breathe. Build a really comprehensive market landscape, meaning all companies that are trying to solve the problem that you're trying to solve should appear in front of you on a map. Why? For two reasons. First of all, for you, because when you see what's going on in your market, you can make a much more educated decision whether to go forward, whether to pivot, whether to just call it, a day and just stop the whole startup. But also, there's another reason that you should build a market landscape, and that's for investors. A lot of people think incorrectly that investors want to hear you say, oh, I have no competitors. When in reality, the opposite is true. When an investor says to you, who are your competitors? And you take a map out of your pocket and say, here are my competitors. The investor understands that you are a responsible and experienced entrepreneur. So showing an investor your competitors is actually for your benefit. So just to summarize what we've said so far, an idea and technology are borderline irrelevant. And before you do anything, before you even start building a prototype, before you write one line of code, before you speak to investors, before you speak to potential partners, do competitive analysis. Make sure you know who else is playing in your market, who has succeeded and who has failed. Why have they succeeded? Why have they failed? This is, again, maybe the most important thing you're going to do throughout your entire journey. Okay, so now we're going to switch to these rules. And they're two rules that very much have to do with marketing and branding. So the first rule I like to call the home run rule. Anybody know what a home run is? Baseball, raise your hand. Baseball, you hit the ball. Okay. It's like let's call it a goal in soccer, in football. Okay. Call it whatever you want, but I call it the home run rule. What's the home run rule? If you come to an investor and you say to the investor, here's my product. And that investor looks at your product and says, wow, what a beautiful, beautiful product. Now your home run is your product. But what happens if I come to an investor and I say, here's my product, and the investor looks at that product and says, not great. And you say to that investor, okay, fine. You don't like the way it looks, but guess what? I launched last week and I have 100,000 users. So now your traction is your home run. Maybe your product's not great, but your traction is a home run. And let's say I come to that investor and I say, here's my product. And he says, weak. And he says, how many followers do you have? You say 10. It's pretty weak. But then you say, but the guy who built Gmail at Google joined my team. And now my team is my home run, right? And I come to the investor and I say, I have no product, I have no traction, I have no team, but my investor, Eric Schmidt, invested in me. Wow. Now your investors are your home run, and so on and so forth. And so on and so forth. Why is it important that you have a home run? Because the entire world of fundraising and marketing and branding can be explained in 4 letters. Anybody have any guesses what those 4 letters are? I didn't think so. It's not a curse word. 4 letters. FOMO. FOMO. You guys know what FOMO is? Right. Fear of missing out. If you come to an investor and that investor is afraid that if he does not invest, that his competitors are going to invest, or you come to a journalist and you tell the journalist the story and he's afraid that if he doesn't break the story, someone else will, you're creating FOMO. And that is when an investor takes out his checkbook, when they feel like they're going to miss out. The only way you can make a person feel like they're going to miss out is if you show them that something is wow. Something is a home run. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be product, it could be traction, it could be team, it could be investors, it could be anything. But something is wow. That is when that investor or that journalist or that partner, whoever it may be, agrees to do what you want, whether it's a check, whether it's a partnership, whatever. So first rule is figure out what your home run is. Sit with your team. And if you're the only person on your team, sit with yourself and do some meditation and figure out what your home run is. Because if you don't have a home run and you come to an investor and you say, my product is weak, my traction is weak, my team is weak, everything's weak, why would they invest? Think about it. What does an investor want? You know, there's a lot of talk about investors and what they want from startups. They only want one thing. Anybody who says otherwise is lying to you. An investor wants to return the money to his investors. That's it. That's it. And that means that they can't invest in companies that are going to bring them 2x or 3x their money. They're looking for the next Instagram. They're looking for the next WhatsApp. They're looking for 40, 50, 100x. You need to convince that investor that you are that company. You are going to bring them 50x. And if you can't do that, the investor's not writing a check. So first rule, home run rule. Okay? So far, so good? Thumbs up. We understand? Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Second rule. I call it the nodding your head rule. Doing this. Okay, this is called nodding your head. I call it the nodding your head rule. What do I mean? You have about 10 seconds, literally 10 seconds. I'm not exaggerating. You have 10 seconds in the beginning of every meeting to get that person that you're sitting with to nod their head, to do this. Now, let's say I built a bracelet for my daughter that when she's in the park, I'll know where she is so I don't lose my daughter. So now I could come to an investor and say, hey, listen, I built a low energy Bluetooth 5.0 IoT device that detects movement in hyperlocal. Whoa, what are you talking about? You lost me. Or I could come to that same investor and say, hey, remember yesterday you were in the park and you were afraid you were going to lose your daughter? And now the investor's nodding his head. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. We solved that. And that's it. That's it. Do not continue. Do not throw buzzwords. Do not try to sound smart. Just tell the investor that you know a problem that they're experiencing and that you fixed it. Then the investor will say, okay, tell me more. How do you do that? What's your technology? What's your go-to-market? But first, get that person you're sitting with to go like this. I'm not just saying like as an exaggeration, literally aim to get the person to understand and to identify with the problem that you are solving. If you built a chip for luggage, for a suitcase in the airport, so that I don't lose my suitcase. So again, you can come there and tell that investor about all the technology that you've developed, or you can say, hey, remember you were in the airport yesterday and you were afraid you were going to lose your suitcase? Well, we cracked that. That's it. Now, let me ask you guys a question. I actually would love some participation here. So you can unmute yourself just to answer this question. Raise your hand if you think you understand the goal of a subject of an email, the noseh of an email. What is the goal of the subject? If you want to unmute yourself if you have answers. Hillel, unmute yourself.
To get someone to open the mail.
Fantastic. You know what a lot of people say to me, specifically in Israel, when I ask them that? They say, the goal of a subject of an email is to summarize the email. No. Because if I'm summarizing the email and the subject, then why would the person even open the email, right? The same is true for the nodding your head rule. Your goal is for that investor or whoever it is you're speaking to say, tell me more. It's like a tagline, the one line, Nike, just do it. What is just do it? Just do it doesn't tell me about Nike's product, but just do it says, let me hear more. I want to know more about this brand. That is the goal of the nodding your head rule. Get that person to ask, what are you talking about? You solved this. How did you solve it? How, as an investor, this is going to be a good investment? How am I going to get my money back? Okay. So first of all, just to sum up so far, first of all, technology and product out the window. We don't care. I don't care. If you have an amazing product that you executed very, very, very well and people love your product and it happens to have proprietary technology behind it, great, fantastic. But you cannot build a sustainable business in 2022 on technology. The same is true for an idea. I don't care. Do you know that Google was number 17 search engine? Number 17. And again, before Facebook, we had MySpace. Before Apple, we had BlackBerry and Nokia. None of these guys were first. None of them had an amazing idea. What did the iPhone do that no one else did? They did it better. What did Facebook do that no one else did it? They did it better. Execution, not technology and not idea, execution. Okay. First rule, home run rule. Figure out what is your home run. What is going to create FOMO, right? Second rule, nodding your head rule. How is the person that I'm speaking to going to identify with the problem that I'm trying to solve? Don't talk to them about your algorithm. Don't talk to them. Just ask them a question. I say maybe as a little bit of a joke that you should start every meeting with, hey, you know how, now you don't have to say those words, but in reality, you get the person to identify with you and what you're solving. Extremely, extremely important. Okay. Any questions so far? Anybody? Feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions. We're going to run forward in a second. No questions? Excellent. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I hope you guys aren't sleeping or something. All right.
That's good. That's good.
That's good. All right. Thanks, Jonathan. Awesome. Okay. Let's move on. Now, I want to talk a little bit about branding. Okay. Now, branding is a very, I don't know what to call it. It's like an abstract term. What does branding mean? I don't think anybody really understands what does that mean? Branding. So let's talk about it. You know, one of the one-liners that I hear from entrepreneurs, maybe more than any other line, is from the movie Field of Dreams. You guys remember the movie Field of Dreams? It was about a baseball, and the one line was, who knows the one line? Jonathan, what was the one line in Field of Dreams?
If you build it, they will come.
Excellent. You're hired. If you build it, they will come. If I hear one more entrepreneur say that, I'm going to punch them in the throat. Enough already with that crap. If you build it, they will come. If you build it, nobody's going to hear about it. You need to do marketing so that people hear about you and then they'll come. If you build it, they will come. It's just not true. I hear it every day from entrepreneurs. It's ridiculous. And that is why you need branding. Raise your hand if you play basketball. Just raise your hand if you play basketball. Anybody? Nobody plays basketball here? Okay. Well, there's something called in basketball, there's something called an alley-oop. Okay. If you've ever seen a commercial of basketball, you see one player throws the ball into the air, the other guy catches it and dunks it. That is the relationship between marketing and sales. If you're branding and marketing correctly, you're elevating your brand, elevating. And then that salesperson or that ad on Facebook is a slam dunk. Because if you're blogging or if you're active on social media and I follow you, and then your salesperson calls me to sell me your product, I say, oh yeah, I know you guys. I follow you on Twitter. I listen to your podcast. I read your blog. And now the brand is here, not here. And now it's much easier of a sale. So the relationship between marketing and sales is that the marketing, if you're doing a good job, is elevating the ball and the sales is slam dunking. Now, that is what the relationship. But what is the difference between marketing and sales? And I want to hear your thoughts on this because marketing and sales at the end both need to sell something. So what is the real difference between marketing and sales? And I'm not talking about tactical differences. I'm not saying, this one's shorter, this one's longer. Forget that. What is the fundamental difference between marketing and sales? Who has an answer for me? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Not all together, please.
Marketing is to bring the leads and sales to close the leads.
Okay, but that's true. 100% you're right. But that's tactical. That's like, as we say, like hands-on, you're right. But I'm saying a more fundamental difference, like bamahut shalem. What is the difference between marketing and sales? Anybody else have any thoughts?
Long run and short run.
That's true too. Again, tactics. You're right, 100%. But that's tactical. To me, anybody else before I give my answer? Nobody? All right. The difference between marketing and sales, in my opinion, is one word. And that one word does not exist in Hebrew. There's no such word in Hebrew. You ready? In English, the word is subtlety. Subtlety. In Hebrew, the closest word to subtlety is me'udan, but it's not really the same thing. What is subtlety? Subtlety is the ability to say something without saying it. For example, Red Bull, right? We know the drink Red Bull. If I say to you, energy drink, you say Red Bull. But what's interesting is, if you go to Red Bull's website, there's one word missing from their homepage. One word missing. It's not there. Beverage, drink. It's not even on their website. They're literally not selling you a drink. What are they doing? Jumping out of planes, right? You're being marketed to, and you don't even realize you're being marketed to. And that means that they're doing good marketing because sales, you're being sold to. But if a person's doing good marketing, you don't even realize that you're being marketed to. It's subtle. And that is a very, very important point because a lot of people misunderstand marketing and branding to be self-promotion. I'm the greatest thing in the world. I'm so amazing. That's not marketing. If you're doing that, that is not marketing. That's not sales either, but that's a topic for another time. That's just garbage. But marketing is elevating your brand, and the person on the other end doesn't even realize that they're being marketed to. Extremely important point. Okay, I'll tell you guys a story. My first job in tech about 15 years ago was at a mobile advertising company. Okay, he hired me, the CEO, as head of marketing. Now, their product is an SDK. I don't know if you guys know what that is. It doesn't matter. They're selling to mobile developers. Okay, anybody who has an app, if you create your own app, you need to make money from your app. So they give you the opportunity to put ads in your app and make money. Now, the guy calls me to his office, my first day on the job. First day. His name is Ziv, amazing guy. He says to me, Hillel, how are you going to bring 10,000 developers this year? And he expected me to say Facebook ads, Google ads, some SEO, some PPC, whatever it is. He expected me to say all these different tactics. And you know what I said to him? I said, I'm going to start a company blog. And he looked at me like I fell off of Mars. He's like, what? A company blog? How does that help? And I said to him, not only am I going to start a company blog, but I'm never going to talk about ourselves on this blog, ever. I'm never going to talk about the company. At that point, he thought I was on drugs. He was like, what is wrong with you? And I said to him, not only are we not going to talk about the company, but we're not even going to talk about mobile advertising. He was ready to kick me out of his office and fire me on the first day of my job. He's like, what are you talking about? Anyway, I sold him on this concept, and I said like this. If I'm a 16-year-old kid in Texas, okay, and I don't have an app, there's no reason for me to read a blog about mobile advertising because I don't have an app. I don't need mobile advertising. But I like mobile. I like mobile. Now, if we write about mobile, not mobile advertising, mobile, then this 16-year-old kid will read our blog. And then in 2 years from now, when he has his own app and he needs to make money from his app, where's he going to go? Because we've elevated the brand. We've elevated. Now he knows us. And now when he needs us, it's a slam dunk. The CEO bought this idea that I had, the same way the CEO of Red Bull bought the idea, by the way. And I started this blog. And within about 4 months, this blog, which never talked about the company, I'm repeating, never talked about the company. This blog sold more than the sales team. Like it was actually converting. Now, just to be clear, I'm not saying, you should write a blog and not have a sign up button on the bottom or the top or your logo. Obviously, we're not idiots. Okay. We'd have to figure out a way to convert those readers into customers. But the content, the actual content is objective, is value, is not self-promotional. And that is how you do branding and marketing. You offer value. Okay. One of the first things that I heard many, many, many years ago about the internet, and this is super duper important, is that opening a website is like opening a restaurant. Okay. Hear me out. This is brilliant. I heard this like literally 10 years ago. It's like this. If I open a restaurant, the first thing I need to do is put a sign outside, because if you're walking by my restaurant and you don't know if I'm selling pizza or hamburgers, you're not coming in, right? So now I got to put a sign outside, and that is the equivalent of putting a one-liner, a tagline. So when I search and I come across your website on Google, what are you? Tell me what you are, otherwise I'm not coming in. That's basic. Now, what's the most important thing in a restaurant? I'm there for one thing and one thing only, the food. You could spend $1 million on advertising, bringing me to your restaurant. It might be the most beautiful restaurant in the world, but if the food is garbage, I'm not coming back. That's the product, and that's your content. If I come to your website and I can't consume food, as in content, the content's not good, I'm out of there. What's the second most important thing in a restaurant? The experience, the ambiance, the environment, right? Meaning the experience of consuming the food. The food could be great, but if it comes cold, or the restaurant's boiling hot or freezing cold, or it's noisy, or whatever it may be, the experience of consuming that content, that food, is not a very good experience. And I'm not coming back. Whoever just unmuted himself. You good? Okay. So now the equivalent of that on your website is what's called the optimization of your site. What does that mean? That means that consuming your content is fun. So there's no errors, there's no typos, there's no broken links, right? It works on mobile. It's a good experience. Okay, so far we said a sign outside, so a one-liner. We said good content and good optimization. Those three things are really basic. What do I mean they're basic? I mean, nobody is bringing 100,000 people to their restaurant because they put a sign outside. Let's be honest. So how do they bring 100,000 people to the restaurant? And the answer is when more food magazines write about them, food journals, when they write about them, people hear about them. People hear, they come into the restaurant. They come into the restaurant, they experience the food, they experience the ambiance, and then you have a snowball effect because he tells a friend and he tells. Now, how do you get food journals to write about you, food journals on the internet? Meaning, how do you get people talking about you? There's one word, content. The more you write, the more people talk about you. The more people talk about you, the more they link to you. And that is the equivalent of a food journal. The more they link to you, the more Google says, whoa, what is this website that has 10,000 links coming into it? It must be an authority in its space. And that is your goal. Those 3 words, authority, 4 words. Math isn't my strong suit. Authority in your space. That's it. That's this entire lesson in 4 words. Authority in your space. I'm going to say it again. You have to become an authority in your space. Okay? So you write more content, more people link to you. And I'm going to tell you something, but don't tell anyone I said this. The only difference between me and CNN and the reason they have 1,000 times more traffic than me is not because they write better than me. I promise you. I send them mistakes every day. You know why they have 1,000 times more traffic than me? Because they write 1,000 times more content than me. If I write 1 or 2 pieces a day, CNN has an entire army of people writing content. And I'm going to say something even more extreme. If you have to choose, this is very controversial what I'm about to say. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'll say it anyway. If you have to choose between writing very, very, very high quality content, like 50,000 word article with research and data and super comprehensive once a month, or writing 400 words, a good article, nothing insane, just a good article, but every single day, I promise you that it's better to write every single day. I promise you. And by the way, I said if you have to choose, you do have to choose because you can't do both. You have to figure out your strategy. And the more you write, the more people talk about you, the more people link to you. Now, I want to be very clear. I'm not saying that you should write garbage, but I am saying that quality and quantity here are pretty much side by side. I'll tell you one more thing. A lot of people talk about social media, and we'll talk about that in a bit. What people don't realize is, and this is backed up by data, you can look at the data and see that this is true. With all the hype about social media, all the buzz, if you look at actual numbers, the traffic that's driven to websites from search, as in Google, and social media are equivalent. It's not like social media is here and search is here. And yet, all these entrepreneurs, all these companies are focused on social media and forgetting search. Don't forget search. Just by a quick show of hands, anybody here have a mobile app? Anybody have a mobile app? Nobody has a mobile. You have a mobile app. Mayan has a mobile app. Abdiram has a mobile app. Ronnie has a mobile app. Noah has a mobile app. Fantastic. Now, raise your hand if you've heard of the letters ASO. ASO. Who knows what that is? Okay. If you guys are you doing this, Mayan? Familiar? You're on mute. You're on mute. Okay. Anyway, let's talk about ASO for 1 second. You know what? If you guys remember one thing from today, remember this. Okay? Because this is literally a secret weapon. If I want to drive traffic to my website, I have a certain kind of toolbox, certain things that can drive traffic, right? So I have PR, right? Yachatz. I have social media. I have search. I have SEO. You guys know what SEO is, right? Search engine optimization, right? You know what that is. Okay. ASO is the same thing as SEO, but instead of getting ranked on Google, you're getting ranked on the App Store. So when someone searches for something, you're one of the first results. It's the same exact thing as SEO, but on the App Store. Let me tell you guys something. There is a company in Israel called Fitness 22. Did anybody ever hear of them? Fitness 22? Nobody. Fitness 22 is a company in Petach Tikva that has many fitness apps. Many fitness apps. They have tens, listen carefully, they have tens of millions of downloads, tens of millions, without a marketing department. There's no marketing. They have no marketing in the company. All they have is someone doing ASO. It happens to be Benny Shavib, who's the CEO of the company, and he showed me his Excel sheet, gave me a headache. He's been doing ASO for years, meaning certain keywords, designing the landing page. And when you search for certain things in the App Store, his apps come up first. And that is how he has acquired tens of millions of downloads. And by the way, almost for free. If I'm running ads, I can acquire users, but it costs me a lot of money. If I try to get PR, it costs me a lot of money, right? ASO, if you know how to do it, free. I mean, you could buy some software, $20, $50. That's it. It's free. And nobody's ever heard of it. Nobody's ever heard of ASO. It is by the way, the fact that no one's ever heard of it is to your advantage because no one else is doing it. So if you do it, you get, higher ranking in the App Store. Really important. Okay. Now I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the building, right? That is marketing. Why is, in my opinion, the foundation, the yesod of the building, the most important part of this building, and we'll talk about the whole building in a second, but what is the most important part of this building called marketing? Content. Why? Why is content so important? Anybody have any ideas? Why, as a company, if I start writing or podcasting or vlogging or whatever, producing content about my industry, why is that so important? Anybody have any ideas? I need you guys to participate, so I can take a breather.
It can lead organic lead.
Okay, so it could bring organic traffic. Okay, that's true. Any other ideas why content is so important?
And it brings a lot of exposure and a lot of eyes that are looking at you. So,
guys, Yonathan's making you look all really bad. Come on, some other answers here. Why is content important?
It gets people connected.
Wait, Mayan, what'd you say?
It makes you an expert.
Beautiful. Authority in your space.
Of an expert, someone who's really good at what he does, and people
Beautiful.
are coming to you because you're the...
Love it. Great. Perfect. Fantastic. Who else? Somebody else was saying something?
What about credibility?
Right? It establishes credibility. Fantastic. Yeah.
You can get people involved, connected, stimulated.
Great. Awesome answers. Okay. So the reason I think is everything you said is true. The reason that content is the foundation of the building is just like a building, everything else is stronger when your foundation is strong. What do I mean by that? Well, let's examine the different components of branding. Okay, so let's start with SEO. It's obvious. The more content I write, the more links, more traffic from Google. So SEO is obvious. I don't even have to explain that. It's obvious. But let's talk about social media. Everyone says, I need to be on social media. I need to be on Twitter. I need to be on Facebook. Why? Did you ever ask yourself why? Why do you need to be on Twitter? Why do you need to be on Facebook? What are you doing there? Are you just there to say I'm there? That's what most people are doing there, just there to say they're there. And companies, just there to say they're there. Are they doing anything? They're not doing anything valuable. But if you're producing content, and we'll talk about what type of content, whether it's written or audio or video, but if you're producing content, now all of a sudden, I have a reason to follow you on Twitter because you're tweeting about your industry. And if your industry is AI, and I love AI, and your Twitter feed is full of good content about AI, now I have a reason to follow you, right? So producing content makes social media more effective. Okay, so we said we said SEO and we said social media. Let's talk about PR, right? You reach out to a journalist, you say, hey, journalist, I'm launching this company in AI. I want you to write about me. What is the first thing that journalist is going to do? They're going to Google you, right? They're going to Google you. What are they going to see? They're going to see that you've been writing about the AI industry for a year. And they're going to say, wow, these guys know their stuff. And all of a sudden, instead of being another company pitching this journalist, now you're a colleague because just like they're writing, you're writing. And now you're on the same level. And now it makes that whole pitch so much easier. I can tell you that I write, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but I write for almost every tech publication, TechCrunch, The Next Web, Kalkalis, all of them. So when I pitch them, the journalists, they look at me and they say, oh, it's Hillel. Hillel writes for us. Hillel is a colleague, not a company pitching us. So it helps with PR. So it helps, we said, with SEO. It helps with social media. It helps with PR. What about fundraising? What about raising money from an investor? Well, let's go back to what we said in the beginning. What does an investor want? An investor wants to return his or her money to their investor. That means they need to invest in a good founder and not in good technology and not in a good idea, but in a good team. And any investor that says otherwise is an investor that you do not want as your investor. Good investors invest in people. Now, what makes a person a good entrepreneur or a good founder? What we said before, if they're an authority in their space. Now, how does that manifest? How does a person know if you're an authority? Well, if you're writing content every single day for the past year about AI, you must know your stuff. And if you know your stuff, that investor will say, wow, this guy's a real expert. And then your chances of raising money just went up. Business development. You pitch some, I don't know, Google. You pitch Google, you say, what are they going to do? They're going to start doing research on who you are. And when they see that you are an expert and you are an authority, it makes it all easier. So whatever part of marketing you want to look at, content makes it easier. Okay, so far so good? You with me? Thumbs up? Cool. Okay. Guys, by the way, feel free at any point to unmute yourself and ask any questions if you want, or we can do it at the end, but we're Israel, so we can just, jump in whenever you want. Cool? Okay, good. Let's talk about the second floor of that building. So now you have this content. How often you're going to write, what type of content, we'll talk about it. Hopefully we'll get there. So what do you do with this content? How do you distribute it? And that is where that second level comes in, social media. Okay. Now you're a startup. Okay. Even if you're not a startup, you have limited resources. You can't be everywhere. You cannot be on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can't be everywhere. So you need to sit down, figure out who are you targeting? What's your goal of being on social media? Who do you want to follow you? What do you want to gain when they follow you? Are you selling something? Are you looking for relationships? What are you trying to do? And after you establish who your target audience is, now you need to figure out, okay, where does that audience spend their time? So for example, if I'm targeting kids, what platform am I going to be on? TikTok, right? Just curiosity. Who's on TikTok here? Raise your hand. You guys do not even know what you're missing. I'm just telling you. It is, first of all, I just want to let you guys know, it is by far the fastest growing social media platform in history. And I don't post TikToks. I'm not like dancing around on TikTok, but I'm telling you guys, there's no platform out there that has better content than TikTok. I'm just saying, just try it. But anyway,
so much fun. A lot of fun.
Oh, I love it. It's the greatest. The problem is my wife gets angry at me because I could spend 4 hours on TikTok, whatever. Anyway. Yes,
you need time for that. If you're an entrepreneur, you just don't have time for TikTok.
You spot on. I agree completely.
What's your take on Twitch?
So I'll tell you my take on Twitch. My take on Twitch is there's no other platform that makes me feel old like Twitch does. Because I can't understand why anyone would want to watch a gamer playing a game in real time. It boggles my mind. I don't understand it at all.
Well, you watch people play football, right? There was, the divisional playoffs. So you watch other people playing other games. So what's the difference?
I mean, you don't have to convince me because you're right and I'm wrong. Clearly, Twitch is massive, but I just don't get it. I don't get it. Anyway, so you have to figure out where your audience is and where does that audience spend their time. So for example, if you're targeting investors are not looking for deal flow. They're not looking to invest in startups because of Facebook or because of TikTok, maybe even because of Instagram. No. Where are they looking? And this is maybe something you guys won't agree with, but I'm telling you, like, this is a data-driven thing that I'm saying. LinkedIn too, but LinkedIn is second. First is Twitter. Okay. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. Twitter lo tafas ba'aretz, right? That's what you guys are all thinking. Everyone says that. Twitter lo tafas ba'aretz. Okay, let me tell you something. I sat with the Twitter team. They showed me the data. Okay. And in fact, if you want, I can do a real-time experiment right now and open my Twitter. I guarantee you that out of the last 30 tweets in my timeline right now, there are at least 20 or 15 of them that are Israeli. They showed me the numbers. I don't know who made that up, that Twitter isn't big in Israel. It's not true. Now, let me just be clear. I'm not saying that every person that has a falafel stand is on Twitter, but every politician, every athlete, every actor, every investor, there's no such thing as a top investor in Israel that's not on Twitter. So forget that Twitter doesn't work in Israel. Whoever told you that is lying. Twitter is huge in Israel. Huge. Okay. So you need to figure out who you're targeting and where are they spending their time. Let's talk about Twitter for 1 second. But what I'm about to say applies across all platforms. For me, Twitter is by far the most important platform. And maybe I'll tell you guys a couple of stories soon if we get to it. But Twitter is a phenomenal platform. Now, what are you doing on Twitter? And again, Twitter is an example, but it's true about other platforms too. If I get a notification on my phone that a company is following me, what's the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to click on their bio, on their profile, and I'm going to look at their tweets. Is this something I want to follow? Now, if their tweets are link, I don't need that. I have an RSS feed. I can open up Safari and read the news. I don't need to follow you on Twitter for that. So I need to see that there's a human being behind this account. Everyone talks about social media, but we're focused on the media part and not on the social part, right? It's two words. By the way, two words that are a paradox. Media is broadcast, social is two-way. It's just an interesting thought on that. But I want to see that you're also being social. So what I say is your tweets and your Facebook posts, your LinkedIn posts, whatever, should be a third, shlish, links, articles, both your own and other people's articles about your industry. The second shlish is engagement, replying to people, retweeting others. Someone asks a question about your industry, you answer them, engagement. And the third one should not be a link and should not be a reply to someone. It should be just a tweet. What does that mean, just a tweet? No link, no call to action. It could be a quote, it could be a thought, whatever, something, a prediction, whatever it is. There's no call to action.
Something from you to the world.
From me, from my company, from my CEO, whatever it is, but something from me that you will find interesting if you like AI. So again, a third, links, meaning come click on this link. A third, engagement, social, right? And a third, general content, let's call it. Now, if I see that, if someone follows me and I see that, then I'll follow them. So it's really, really, and I'm telling you something, it's not easy. But let me tell you guys a story. Many, many, many years ago, more years than I care to admit, I had a startup, okay? This startup was in the messaging space, so like a WhatsApp competitor. This was early on before WhatsApp was even big. WhatsApp didn't even have a web app. All they had was a mobile app. Now, my product had a web app. So what did I do? I opened Twitter and I searched for the words WhatsApp web. Why? Because 10,000 people were tweeting every single day. Why doesn't WhatsApp have a web app? They suck. They're so. And guess what? This is my target audience on a silver platter. These are all people that I could, quote unquote, sell my product to. Now, remember what we said before, subtlety. So what I didn't go in there and say, oh, you want a WhatsApp web? Use us. We're the greatest thing in the world. That would be obnoxious and that would not work. What did I do? I did the most subtle thing you can do. By the way, who's on Twitter here? Raise your hand. Active on Twitter. Anybody? Jonathan? That's it? Oh my God, you guys. Wow, we're gonna have to talk afterwards. Oh my gosh, it hurts me. I'm just kidding. Anyway, so what did I do? So I'm just going to get a little technical here, a little bit, not too technical. I didn't go into those tweets that were complaining about WhatsApp and reply to them saying, use my product. I didn't do that. What I did was I clicked like. On Twitter, a like is even more subtle than on Facebook, because if you like something on Facebook, it basically notifies your friends, Hillel liked this post. On Twitter, no one sees it. The only two people that know that you like something is you and the person who tweeted it, that he gets notified, Hillel Fuld just liked your tweet. I went through all of those 10,000 tweets and I clicked like. Why did I do that? Because the other side all of a sudden gets a notification that my company liked their tweet. And they say to themselves, what is this company? I never heard of them. And they come into my profile and guess what they see? A messaging app with a web app. I cannot even tell you how many new users I got that day. And I didn't even open my mouth. Marketing, subtlety. Now, I want to give you guys two ideas that everything we've talked about till now takes time. If you want to build a brand, you want to establish yourself as an authority, writing content, even if you write every single day, it could take 6, 8, 10 months till you see actual results. But there are two things that you can do right now, today, with almost zero effort, zero money, and it will drive ROI, return on investment, immediately. We said before, marketing takes time. If you do these two things, you will get ROI immediately. Okay? Now, before I tell you these two things, I want you guys to pay attention, not to the two things, but to the ideas behind them. Okay? The concept, the philosophy. I will talk about that in a second. Here are the two ideas. About 8 years ago, I looked at my blog analytics and I looked how many readers I have. I said, okay, it's nice, good numbers. I'm happy. How do I kick it up a notch? How do I get more traffic? I said, you know what? I have an idea. I'm going to start interviewing people. Who am I going to start interviewing? I wrote a list of people that I want to interview. And I didn't set my goals low. I set my goals very high. At the top of my list was Steve Wozniak, the founder of Apple and the man who invented the first computer. Now, with all due respect, who the hell am I to interview Steve Wozniak? He doesn't know who I am. Why would he ever agree to do an interview with me? Well, here's surprise number one. All the people, and by now it's hundreds, all of them, 100% of them that I asked to let me interview them, agreed. All of them. Now, you're thinking, oh, you have a lot of followers. I didn't have a lot of followers back then. This was way before. So why did they agree? Basic human psychology. You give someone a stage, they're happy to take it. Everyone has an ego. Everyone has a mom that they want to send their mom the interview and say, look, mom, I was interviewed. Everyone even Steve Wozniak. Now, how did this happen? I messaged on Facebook Messenger. I WhatsApped Steve Wozniak. Sorry, not WhatsApp. Facebook Messenger, Steve Wozniak. I said, Steve, you've been an incredible, inspiration to me, and your career has deeply impacted my career, and I'd love to interview you. Now, in my mind, okay, there's no way Steve Wozniak could even reply to my message. Who the hell am I? Guess what? He replied immediately, which for me was already like a dream come true. I'm talking to Steve Wozniak, but he says to me, thank you for the offer, but I'm sorry, I can't do interviews. I said, okay, no problem. I appreciate the response. I waited a year and I wrote him again. I said, Steve, it would mean so much to me if I could just send you 10 questions by email. He says to me, listen, Steve Jobs just died. I can't do interviews. The press is all over me. I don't have time. I said, okay. I waited another year because this was a dream of mine. I wanted to interview Steve Wozniak. I'm not going to give up on my dreams. So I messaged him again. I said, Steve, what would it take? What do I have to do to convince you to let me send you 10 questions by email? And you know what he said? All right, send me the questions. Okay, now I sent him the questions thinking he'd either not respond to my email at all, or he'll send me back like one-word answers. Because what is he, waste time on me? But guess what? The guy sent me back in-depth, long, real, honest answers about the early days of Apple, including stories that were never published anywhere. He told me, for example, that when him and Steve Jobs were in the garage, they just started Apple, and he had just built the first computer. A teacher, a kindergarten teacher, Gan Yiladim, came into the garage and said, I want a computer to teach my kids about my students, about computers. And Steve Jobs said to her, get out of here. I'm not giving you a computer. What are you, nuts? And Steve Wozniak said, give her a computer. It's for kids. And Jobs said no. And Wozniak took money out of his own pocket, put it on the table, and bought the computer that he just built and gave it to the woman. You're not going to read that story anywhere. He told me himself. Now, it was very nice that I interviewed Steve Wozniak, but, listen, it was over email. It's not like we're best friends. And I wanted a relationship with the guy. I wanted to really have a connection with Steve. It was a dream. I didn't know how I was going to get there. Anyway, as soon as I published this article, for obvious reasons, it got a lot of traffic. Because here I am, a guy in Beit Shemesh interviewing the founder of Apple. I mean, it's kind of a crazy story. So it went pretty far, a lot of readers. And then all of a sudden, in the comments, and I have a screenshot of this because that was like my proudest moment, Wozniak comments in the comments of the post, and he says, Hillel, if I had known you were this popular, I would have let you interview me 3 years ago. I was like, yes. But listen, it was still, over email. It wasn't yet my dream of really having a relationship with Steve Wozniak. But let me tell you what happened next. Fast forward about 6 months, and I get a phone call. Hi, Hillel, this is Steve. I said, Steve who? He said, Steve Wozniak. I said, come on, who is this? Who's pranking me? He said, no, Steve Wozniak. I said, no way. He goes, yeah, listen, I'm coming to Israel for 24 hours. Let's have breakfast. So I took a deep breath, and a couple of months later, I found myself in the David Intercontinental in Tel Aviv with the man who invented the home computer. Now, you could watch the interview on YouTube. I talked to him about Israel. It was to say it was a dream come true is a huge understatement. Here, it's just the craziest thing. Now, why are interviews so important? When I interview someone, number one, I get a relationship with that person because I'm giving them a stage. So there's your first return on investment, a relationship with a legend. So you reach out to someone, again, if you're an AI company, reach out to the biggest journalist or the biggest investor or the biggest CEO in AI. Chances are, again, if you communicate well and you figure out where are they hanging out. So if they're on Twitter and you're writing them on Facebook and they're not active on Facebook, then you're not going to get a response. So do a little research and then reach out and say, I would like to interview you. They're all going to say yes, I promise you. I'm telling you, this is a true story. No one's ever said no to me. Now,
I can push something. I never believed this could happen, and I tried something.
Who's talking? I'm trying to figure out who's talking. Hold on 1 second.
Jonathan.
Oh, hi. Yeah. Wait, John, hold on. John, 1 minute. Remember, you're going to say, let me just finish the point, and then remember what you're going to say, though, okay? So the first thing you get is a relationship with this person. Now, what happens? I send that person 10 questions by email. How long does it take you to write 10 questions? 5 minutes? That's it. That's my whole effort here. 5 minutes. I send the guy 10 questions. He sends me back 10 answers. Ooh, what just happened? That was really weird. Okay, so now he sends me back 10 answers. I copy paste on my blog and I hit publish. What's the first thing that person's going to do? They're going to share it. So you're sitting here getting all the traffic of this legend in your space. You could not pay enough money to have that person tweet your article. But without even asking them, they're tweeting your article. Why? Because instead of talking about yourself, you're talking about them. You're giving them a stage. So the first return on investment is a relationship. Second return on investment is targeted traffic. Remember, this isn't just traffic. It's traffic from someone in your industry. It's the best traffic you can ask for. So the second thing is traffic. And the third thing that happens here, and the most important, what happens to your brand? Everyone around you says, oh my God, Hillel just interviewed Steve Wozniak. And guess whose brand gets elevated? My brand gets elevated. Slam dunk. So I didn't even talk about myself. I didn't even mention my name. And I get my branding by giving someone else the stage. Jonathan, what were you going to ask?
It wasn't a question. I just want to make your words a bit stronger, because I never believed that somebody in high in the mountains will answer me with a simple question. And I sent a question on LinkedIn to Palmer Luckey, the guy who invented the Oculus. I never believed he will answer, and he gave me a full big answer to a small question I had. And it was amazing. People do wanted to participate and do want to answer questions. They're not gods; they're human.
100%.
We have to understand, remember that all the time.
Amazing, unbelievable. And I'm telling you guys, if you communicate well, everyone will be happy to do an interview. So interviews.
And Hillel, just we actually had a session about how to ask for help. The probability of someone saying no diminishes as he gave you the actually previous no. And if you think about what Hillel did, we talked about what you need to be an entrepreneur. You need perseverance, you need persistence, you need grit. And that's what Hillel actually showed when he actually did not give up and year after year actually continued to drive it. So these are real fundamental elements that are required in order to get where you need to go.
Okay, thank you. So here's the second thing, right? We said interviews. Now here's the second idea, which is like interviews, but on steroids. Way more effective. You ready? How many people, raise your hand, have seen a list, top 20, top 50, in your Facebook feed in the last 2 weeks? Raise your hand. Some stupid list that appeared in your feed. We've all seen this crap. We all saw another stupid list, right? Guess what? All of us missed the point. All of us are wrong. You know why? Let me tell you guys a story. There's a guy in Berlin. It's a true story. There's a guy in Berlin who I don't know. I've never spoken to him. I don't even know his name. I don't know what he does. I don't know who he is. Don't know who he is. Once a month, he puts out a list of the top 1,000 tech bloggers in the world. Now, I don't know why, and I don't know how, but for some reason, he decided that I'm number 7 tech blogger in the world. Now, with all due respect, there is no metric in the world by which I'm number 7 tech blogger. It's completely ridiculous. I'm telling you, there are people on that list who I learned what blogging is from them, and they're under me on the list. It's ridiculous. But guess what? Does it matter? What do I do with that list? I share it. And what do the 999 other bloggers do with that list? They share it. And guess whose servers melt every single month? This dude in Berlin. He probably built an entire business out of giving the top 1,000 tech bloggers a stage. Because guess what? Everyone has an ego. And everyone wakes up the next morning and says, I got a Google alert on my name. I was mentioned on this company blog. What is this company? They go in, they see they're featured with a nice picture of them, and they share it. And you get all the traffic. So again, if you're an AI company, once a month, top 50 journalists in AI, top 50 investors in AI, top 50 CEOs in AI, it almost doesn't matter what you're featuring. The important thing is that you're featuring. Now, let's get a little deeper. Why are these ideas so good? Because you're building a stage, a bama. You're building a stage, and you're deciding who gets to stand on that stage. What does that say about you? That says you're an authority in your space because you own the stage. Okay, I about 10 years ago, I had a startup, and it was that same startup I talked to you guys about before. And we had just started. We raised money from Microsoft. It was going great. And we sat down. And we said, okay, how do we do something a little more exciting with our marketing? And we came up with an idea to have a summit, like a Kennes in New York for our industry. And we were like super, super early stage. Early stage startups don't have summits in New York. But I sold our investors. I told them we can do this, blah, 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 whatever. They agreed. So I spoke to people I know in New York, and we got a venue for free and charge us. I started to reach out to people that I know, journalists, and ask them to come. Everyone was happy to come. I then reached out to a big, big name, a very big name. I don't know if you guys know Gary Vaynerchuk, whatever. big name, asked him to come. He said, okay, $50,000. I said, we have no budget. Please come for free. He said, okay. True story, I promise you. You could watch it on YouTube. He came to speak for free. This thing completely sold out. The next day, guys, I'm telling you the truth. The next day, this company that yesterday our competitors never even heard of us. We were tiny. The next day, our competitors were chasing us. Overnight, we became an authority. Why? Because we built a stage and we decided to get to stand on that stage. So what's the concept here? We're running out of time. Got to go fast. By the way, guys, prepare questions because like in 2-3 minutes from now, we're doing questions. Okay. There is an author named Ryan Holiday. And this is everything I've said till now is summed up in what I'm about to tell you. So if you haven't been paying attention, pay attention now, because what I'm about to tell you is the secret. I'm not kidding, guys. The secret to good business. I'm not kidding. If you follow this philosophy with your startup, with your personal, you will succeed. I'm not kidding. All right. There's this author called Ryan Holiday. He has a strategy called the canvas strategy, right? A canvas, you know what a canvas is? The guy you can paint on a canvas, right? How do you say canvas in Hebrew? Canvas? No, yes. All right. You know what a canvas is. Canvas. Okay. So this is what he says. It's really brilliant. He says like this: if you focus your time and resources on helping others, instead of helping yourself, help others, pave the road for others to go on their way to success, build a stage, let others stand on that stage. You end up joining them on that stage. So for example, and this is a stupid example, but it's an important example. When I meet people, at the end of every meeting, I take a selfie with the person, always. And then I post on social media, I say, I just met this person. They are amazing because A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Every time. As we say in Hebrew, firgun. No such word in English, by the way. Right? So I post about this guy and I do a little firgun. Now, if my Facebook feed or my LinkedIn feed or my Twitter feed is full of people who are amazing, and all of them have one thing in common, they're standing next to me. Well, what does that say about me? Right? If I am standing next to all these rock stars, without even saying it, you, in your mind, are like, well, he must be a rock star, right? So this is what he says. You have to build a canvas for other people to paint on, right? He says, if you make an effort every time you meet someone to think, how can I help them? Without thinking about yourself at all, how do I help them? What ends up happening is, first of all, you build relationships. Second of all, you learn how to, overcome important problems and challenges. But more importantly, you become indispensable. That person needs you. And if they need you, you can define the terms. And then is when you talk money. When that person comes back to you, and I'm telling you guys something, my entire career is built on this. I have never come to a company in my life and said, pay me and I'll do something. I've said, what are your challenges? Oh, you need help with getting to a journalist? Let me introduce you. You need help with getting to an investor? Let me introduce you. And then this entrepreneur comes back to me and says, you just brought us $20 million. What percent do you want? And then I say, none. And then they faint. And then they come back to me with hearts in their eyes, like in the cartoons. And they say to me, oh my God, what you did for us. We want to work with you. What are your terms? And now I have the leverage. I define the terms, not you. Whereas if I come to you and say, pay me and I'll do something, you get to define the terms and I need to prove myself. But if I do something and you don't pay me, you have no expectations. And all I can do is exceed expectations. And that is when good business happens. I always compare business to a candle. People think of business as a schum efes, right? If I'm giving you money, I must be losing money. That's not true. Business is like a candle. You give your fire to another candle, you lose nothing. You lose nothing. You just create more fire. And if you don't do that, and you don't give your fire to another candle, you're going to end up burning out. You're going to end up burning out. If you focus your time on helping create more fire, that is when you win. And that manifests itself in everything you're going to do in marketing, everything you're going to do in branding. Create a stage, give others firgun, focus on being an authority to give other people value. It's all about you, not me. Everything you do in marketing, if you're doing something that's going to promote yourself, stop and think twice, because no one in the world wants to follow a company that talks about themselves all day long. Now, I just want to say one last thing because we're tight on time. Do we have a hard stop, guys, or we can do a couple more minutes? Sarah, can we? Good? Okay, I'm going to tell you guys a quick story. Does anybody here, I assume the answer is no, maybe Sarah, I don't know. Does anybody here remember the TV show Miha Boss? Who's the boss? Anybody remember that TV show? Yes? All us old folks over here remember it. Okay, so, sorry, I didn't mean to call you old, Sarah. I'm old. So there was this TV show when we were kids called Who's the Boss? And the one of the main actresses in the show was Alyssa Milano. She was a little girl in the show. And I'm telling you, everyone had a crush on Alyssa Milano, boys and girls. Everyone loved Alyssa Milano. So when I joined Twitter 12 years ago, the first person that I followed was Alyssa Milano because, again, I grew up on her. And also because she was talking about tech. So I followed her. I followed her. She didn't follow me. I followed her. Anyway, I would start replying to her tweets. I would start answering questions. I would just, again, being human, being social. About 2 or 3 years in, I'm sitting at home and I get a push notification on my phone. Alyssa Milano has followed you back on Twitter. So I was like, what the heck? Like, how does that make any sense? So I sent her a message, 3 letters, WTF. That's all I wrote, WTF. I said, how did you, Alyssa Milano, find me, Hillel Fuld? You know what she said to me? She said, in my Twitter feed, every single day, I see people tweeting your articles. And every day, someone's saying, Hillel's Fuld, Hillel's Fuld. That's my Twitter name, Hillel's Fuld. And I said to myself, who is this Hillel Fuld guy? He's my entire Twitter feed is talking about Hillel Fuld. So I went to your bio, I went to your profile. I see you're helping startups. I see you're a dad. I see you seem like a nice guy. So I followed you. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. But again, it's just Twitter. Fast forward a year. This is a true story. I could, if you guys don't believe me, I could send you the graphics because what I'm about to tell you is crazy, but it's a true story. I promise you. A year later, I wake up one morning and I have an email from a company pitching me about their company, a press release. Now, as a blogger, I wake up to 300 press releases every day, and they're all the same garbage. Dear blogger, like you couldn't even research my name? Like seriously? This email was super personalized. It was a nice email. I said to myself, I don't even know who these guys are, but I'm going to help them because they spent 5 minutes writing a good email, not 3 days, 5 minutes. So I wrote an article about them. The title of the article was The Only Tool You Need to Decide Who to Follow Back on Twitter. It was a platform to help me understand who the person is that's following me. I tweeted it. Now who's following me? Alyssa Milano, 2.5 million followers. She retweets me to her 2.5 million followers. One of her 2.5 million followers is an Arab sheikh in Saudi Arabia with 50 million followers. And he retweets her. Their servers in Haifa melted and they launched their entire company from one tweet. They were acquired last year for millions of dollars. And when they speak about how they launched their company, they show Hillel Fuld's tweet. Now, it's not because I'm so amazing. You know why that worked? Because Alyssa Milano followed me. But why did Alyssa Milano follow me? Content. Period. Full stop. So going back to the beginning, content helps with everything. In this case, we launched a company from it. I have interviewed hundreds, if not thousands of people and given them a stage. I've never built a unicorn. I'm not some rock star entrepreneur. I just love marketing. I like helping others. I like technology. And my entire career, I built around trying to help others win. And to summarize just my philosophy, and then we're going to open it up to questions. This is my entire philosophy of branding. The entire thing. When I focus my time and resources on value, what does value mean? Introductions to an investor, introduction to a journalist, helping you with your pitch, whatever it is. When I focus my time and resources on value and not on monetization, meaning you're not paying me a dime. What happens is you don't expect anything because you're not paying me. I don't owe you anything. And therefore, there are no expectations. All I can do is exceed expectations. When I exceed expectations over and over and over and over again, I create something that I like to call delight. Delight. It's delightful. Things that are delightful, you pay for. Think about a good cup of coffee. You're going to pay for delight. So I'm in the business, not of marketing. I'm in the business of delight. And when an entrepreneur comes to me, like in the cartoons with those hearts in their eyes, now we can talk money. Before that, I don't want anything. And I'm, by the way, to be clear, I'm talking about millions of dollars. I've literally connected startups to investors that invested millions of dollars. And that startup wanted to give me 5%. But I said, no, you know why? Because my relationship with that investor is more important to me than those 5%. And if I start taking money and making introductions to my friend, that investor, then I compromise our relationship. So I played the long game, and my entire career is built on that philosophy. So to sum up, you're building a company, you're building a product. In parallel, start producing content. It doesn't have to be the best content in the world. I look at my first blog post, I want to cry. Trust me, you start somewhere, you get better. But consistently producing valuable content about your industry. It could be trends, it could be news, it could be interviews, it could be lists, it could be reviews, whatever it is. Objectively valuable content about your industry. That, focus on distributing that content and giving other people a stage, building a canvas for other people to paint on. And when you help others win in business, you end up winning, period. That's all. Questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when is the right time that you start taking money?
Fantastic question. You know when? When the entrepreneur comes to you and says, "Wow, you know what, I'm going to read you an email." Okay, I'm reading the email word for word. This is a Silicon Valley company worth billions of dollars, billions. When they came out 10 years ago, a little bit more, I loved their product. I loved it. And I wrote about it and I promoted it. I didn't even know the team. They didn't ask me to do anything. I just loved it. I'm reading you the email. If you want me to send you the email afterwards, if you don't believe me, I'll send it to you. Here's the email. I'm reading it. The subject of the email is thank you. This is a $1 billion company. Hillel, I won't ever forget your enduring support for what we have been building over the years. It's time we got you some stock and asked you to be a formal advisor. I know you wouldn't ask for this, but it's the right thing to do. I hope you'll accept. We are only just beginning and I could really use your advice when you have the time. And now I can talk money because you want me, not me want you. I have the leverage. You need me more than I need you. Now we can talk money. Does that make sense?
Great.
Awesome. Yeah. Other questions? Come on, guys. You know, it makes me feel bad you're not asking questions. Come on. Jonathan, man, come on. What am I paying you for?
Yeah, actually, I have a question about a specific interview. First of all, This was amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You recently interviewed Ronnie Aberwich. What is he working on today? Like it looks like everybody's talking metaverse, but he's way back. From way back, he's on the metaverse.
So guys, Ronnie Aberwich is the CEO. He was the CEO and he's the founder of Magic Leap, a company that raised $3 billion, the B, before they had a product. I repeat, they raised $3 billion before they had a product. So he left Magic Leap because, are we still recording right now? We're still recording. I'm not allowed to say why he left, but he left because the circumstances were not right for him. He decided to leave and he's building something else now that's completely confidential. And like basically, I can't talk about it. So
the Sun and Thunder thing?
Yeah, you could be sure it's gonna, I mean, it's gonna change. I don't know if you guys ever tried Magic Leap, but it's mind-blowing, the technology that he built. So you could be sure the next thing's gonna be huge, but I'm not allowed to talk about it, but follow that guy. He's different level brilliant. Yeah, what else? By the way, he's an example. I've been following him for a decade. I had absolutely no access to him, even though he's a religious Jew. I had no access to him. I wanted to interview him, but I had no access. You know what? I reached out and then I interviewed him and now we're friends. I'm not oversimplifying. People are happy to connect. Yes. Next question. Somebody asked something.
Yes, I would like to ask something. You're talking about network in the field of marketing. And I mean, from your talk, it's hard to separate, but for me as an entrepreneur, I think that many of us are not marketing people. It's a lot of work. It's a profession. It's not something you do. You make it sound like it's an on-the-way kind of casual side hustle or something, but I don't think so. I mean, maybe I'm hard to convince, but...
First of all, it's a legitimate, it's a valid question. I have a degree in
networking, yes. Marketing, question mark. That's
okay.
Exactly.
So I'll say that it's again a good question, but I can tell you that I have a degree in political science, Madei Hamdina. I never studied marketing in my life. Never. I don't agree with you. I think marketing is a personality trait. Either you got it or you don't. There are some people who cannot do marketing because they're way too direct and way too blunt and way too in your face. But if you're able to be subtle and you're able to communicate, you're 90% there. You have to learn the tools. You have to know how to use Twitter, but you learn that in 10 seconds. You have to either have it or you don't. Some people are not meant for marketing, but I don't agree with you that you can't do it as a quote unquote side. You can do it. You have to learn how to do it, but it's not something you need to learn in college. That's what I'm trying to say. If you have a degree in marketing, great, but you can do it without it. No,
I didn't speak about the studies. I was talking about more of a time management, right. Alongside all other
100%. No, that you're right about. It takes time, and how much time. So it depends what you put in. The more you invest, the more you get out, like everything. But my point of all of this, the whole talk here is that while you're building a product, don't ignore your brand, right? Yes, you might spend more time on building the product, but don't ignore your brand because if you build it, no one will come unless you build a brand. So do what you can, and if you can't, because you really can't, then hire a student, hire some American intern who lives and breathes TikTok, and let them produce content for you, right? But the most important thing is that while you're building your company, your product, you build a brand in parallel so that when you're ready, you have this audience waiting for you. Yeah. Any other questions? Thanks, Mayan. All right, guys. Sarah, if you want to give everyone my email, I'm happy to take any questions by email if anyone wants. And yeah, guys, that's all I got.
Thank you
very much.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
I would like to thank you for sharing with us your amazing philosophy and all these nice stories. We had a great hour with you. Before closing, if anyone wants to send a comment or something to Hillel or
Sarah, just give them my email. Just give them my email.
Okay.
No, I think you should try to convince Hillel to be added to your amazing group of mentors. He will have fun for sure.
Yeah, I will talk about it later, Hillel.
Offline.